Hi everyone. So today's topic is the middle ear cleft anatomy. So first let us know what is middle ear cleft. So middle ear cleft as middle ear, Eustachian tube, antrum, antrum, and mastoid hazel. And it is lined by mucous membrane which is filled with air. So middle ear cleft has middle ear, Eustachian tube, antrum, mastoid hazel, lined by mucous membrane and filled with air. So now let us learn each part one by one. So first is the middle ear. So the middle ear is divided into epitympanum, mesotympanum, hypotympanum, and protympanum. So what is epitympanum or attic? It is above the level of pars tensa. Mesotympanum is opposite to the level of pars tensa, and hypotympanum is below the level of pars tensa. And then we have protympanum, it's around the tympanic orifice of Eustachian tube. So if they ask like what are the parts of middle ear, you will write epitympanum, mesotympanum, hypotympanum, and protympanum. So now let us come to the walls. So walls we have roof, floor, anterior wall, posterior wall, medial wall, and the lateral wall. So first let us start from the roof. So roof, you'll write these 2 points. So remember these 2 points. It's formed by the thin plate of tegment tympani bone. So roof is just thin plate of tegment tympani bone. And what does it do? It separates tympanic cavity from middle cranial fossa. So there is tympanic cavity and above there is middle cranial fossa. In between that you have the plate of tegment tympani bone. So that is the roof. Done. So now let us go to floor. So in floor you have thin plate of bone that separates the tympanic cavity from jugular bulb. So roof you have tegment tympani bone, and floor you have a thin plate of bone which separates from jugular bulb. So this is the relation jugular bulb. Now coming to anterior wall. So anterior wall also have thin plate of bone that separates cavity from internal carotid artery. So in anterior wall, so the relation is carotid artery. You have two openings. So the upper one is for canal of tensor tympani muscle, and lower one is for the Eustachian tube. So you have the anterior wall, right? So you have two openings there. So what are those two openings for? So one is for tensor tympani muscle, the upper one is for the tensor tympani muscle, and the lower one is for Eustachian tube. So it is C is for canal for tensor tympani and ET is Eustachian tube. So these are the two things, and you have to remember the relation, that is carotid artery. So now coming to the posterior wall. So posterior wall, it's close to mastoid ASLs, and it presents a bony projection called pyramid. So on posterior wall, what do you have? A bony projection called pyramid. Then you have adductus, opening through which attic communicates with antrum. So you have the attic and then you have the antrum. Attic is the epitympanum and then you have the antrum. Between attic and antrum you have an opening that is called as adductus. Then you have facial nerve that runs behind the pyramid and the facial recess or the posterior sinus. So posterior wall, what you have to remember? You'll remember the facial nerve, you'll remember the facial recess, facial nerve, adductus and pyramid. So that is facial nerve, facial recess, addutus and pyramid. So now coming to medial wall. So medial wall is formed by labyrinth. Okay. So medial wall you have promontory. So promontory is a bulge due to basal coil of the cochlea. So medially you'll have the inner ear, right? So the cochlea will be there. So due to that bulge you have the promontory. Then you have the oval window to where the foot plate of stapes is fixed. Then you have the round window. Then you have canal for facial nerve, that is also called as horizontal canal. Then you have processus cochlear formis. Then you have the pyramid. Then you have the tympanic plexus and ponticulus. So to remember what and all is there in the medial wall, we have 4P froths. So what are the 4Ps you have? You have promontory, you have ponticulus, you have processus cochleariformis and pyramid. So once again, promontory, ponticulus, processus cochleariformis and pyramid. 4Ps. Then F, then you have the F. So F, yeah, F is facial nerve, R is round window, O is oval window, T is tympanic plexus, H is the horizontal canal, and S is sinus tympani, that is bounded by subiculum. So medial wall, you have too many structures. So you'll remember 4P froths. 4P, first write the 4P: promontory, pyramid, processus cochleariformis, and ponticulus. So these are the 4Ps. Then froths, F-R-O-T-H-S. So F, facial nerve, R, round window, O, oval window, T, tympanic plexus, H, horizontal canal, S is sinus tympani. So that is the medial wall. So then last we have lateral wall. So in lateral wall you have the tympanic membrane. So that's the outside. You have the tympanic membrane and the scutum. Scutum is the bony extent. So that is, those two are there in the lateral wall. So that was the middle ear. So after middle ear, the second thing in the middle ear cleft is mastoid antrum. So mastoid antrum is a large air containing space. Okay. So the roof is formed by the tegmen antri. So it's the continuation of the tegmen tympani. Then you have the lateral wall, the suprameatal triangle, also known as McEwen's triangle. Medially you have the lateral semicircular canal. So medially is the lateral part of semicircular canal, that is the inner ear. Laterally you have the McEwen's triangle and roof is tegmen antri. So that is mastoid antrum. So after mastoid antrum you have adductus ad antrum. So it's an opening through which attic communicates with the antrum. So you have the attic, then you have the adytus, then you have the antrum. Okay, so then you have the mastoid hair cells. So adytus is an opening through which attic communicates with antrum. So then you have last mastoid hair cells. So types we have based on, there is two classifications. One is based on development of hair cells. So one is well developed, known as pneumatized, marrow spaces and fewer hair cells are present, that is diploitic. Then no cells, no marrow space, sclerotic. So what are the three types based on development? Pneumatized mastoid hair cells, diploitic, sclerotic. You remember PDS, okay? Pneumatized, diploitic, sclerotic. So now based on location, you have many types. Zygomatic cells at the root of zygoma. Tegment cells near the tegment tympani. Then you have perisinus cells near the sinus plate. Then the retrofacial cells, facial nerve, perilabyrinthine cells, labyrinth. So this is the locations, okay? Peritubal cells around the Eustachian tube, tip cells, the tip of mastoid, marginal cells behind the sinus plate, and squamous cells, the squamous part of temporal bone. So remember this: zygomatic cell, tegment cell, perisinus, retrofacial, perilabyrinthine, peritubular, tip cells, marginal cells, squamous cells. So these was the anatomy of the middle ear cleft. Okay, so you had middle ear, mastoid antrum, adytus antrum, and mastoid hair cells. So in the middle ear, we have few extra points. So the ossicles of middle ear, as you know, malleus, incus, and stapes. So they conduct the sound from the tympanic membrane to the oval window. So ossicle, you remember what? Malleus, incus, and stapes. Then you have the intratympanic muscles. So what are the intratympanic muscles? Only two they have: tensor tympani, stapedius. So tensor tympani is attached to the upper part of handle of malleus. Then you have the stapedius. So stapedius is attached to the neck of stapes. So tensor tympani is supplied by cranial number 5, that is mandibular nerve. So mandibular branch of trigeminal nerve supplies the tensor tympani, and stapedius is supplied with the facial nerve, that is cranial number 7. Okay, so tensor tympani, stapedius attached to the handle of malleus, attached to the neck of stapes. Cranial number 5, that is mandibular nerve, branch of trigeminal nerve, and the facial nerve for the stapedius. So now let us learn the nerve supply of the middle ear. So you have tympanic plexus and the chorda tympani. So tympanic plexus is formed by tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal and sympathetic fibers. So first let us know tympanic plexus. That means there will be many nerves. So what it is formed by tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal and the sympathetic fibers. Okay. So it supplies what and all part? Medial part of tympanic membrane, entire tympanic cavity, mastoid hair cells, and bony eustachian tube. It's like the middle ear. So the medial part of the so starting from the tympanic membrane, the complete middle ear, mastoid hair cells till the eustachian tube, it supplies tympanic plexus. Then you have the chorda tympani. So chorda tympani, as you know, it's the branch of facial nerve. It runs between the handle of malleus and the long process of incus. So you know that chorda tympani supplies anterior two-thirds of the tongue, submaxillary and subsalivary gland. So it doesn't supply any part of the ear, but it is running the relation, coming to the relations. What are the nerves passing through? So you have the tympanic plexus, which actually supplies the middle ear. But chorda tympani, it just passes, okay? It passes between the handle of malleus and long process of incus. So as you remember that the medial wall, 4P frost. So F was what? Facial nerve. So that facial nerve is the branch of facial nerve is chorda tympani. So now coming to the lining. So how it is lined? So lining is mucous membrane wraps the middle ear structure. So middle ear lining is what? Mucous membrane. So since it is wrapped by the mucous membrane, there are some raised folds will be there. Then eustachian tube, you have ciliated columnar epithelium, and then you have the tympanic cavity. So tympanic cavity also ciliated columnar epithelium anteriorly, cuboidal epithelium posterior. So lining is mucous membrane, complete middle ear mucous membrane. Eustachian tube, ciliated columnar epithelium. You have epitympanum, mastoid hair cells, non-ciliated epithelium. Okay, so the epitympanum and the mastoid hair cells, so they are lined by non-ciliated epithelium. Then you have the lymphatic drainage. So in lymphatic drainage, you have the external ear, you have preauricular, parotid, infraauricular, postauricular, deep jugular, spinal accessory nodes. So the external ear drains into, you remember at least preauricular, postauricular, yeah, parotid, infraauricular, deep jugular. Okay. So then you have the middle ear, and the eustachian tube drains into retropharyngeal nodes. Inner ear, no lymphatics. So external ear, preauricular, parotid, infraauricular, etc. Then you have the middle ear and eustachian tube to the retropharyngeal nodes, and the inner ear, no lymphatics. So coming to blood supply of the middle ear. So blood supply, there are two major arteries. One is anterior tympanic branch of maxillary artery. Another one is styloid branch of posterior auricular artery. So maxillary artery, posterior auricular artery. So this is anterior tympanic branch. This is stylomastoid branch. Okay. So you add like tympanic plexus, right? So remember tympanic branch of maxillary artery. Then you have the stylomastoid branch of posterior auricular artery. So tympanic branch will obviously supply to the tympanic membrane. Stylomastoid branch of posterior auricular artery supplies to the middle ear and mastoid hair cells. So then you have extra arteries that are petrosal branch of middle meningeal, superior tympanic branch of middle meningeal, branch of pterygoid canal, tympanic branch of internal carotid. So if it is difficult to remember the branch, at least the middle meningeal, petrosal branch, superior tympanic, so tympanic branch at least you can remember. So middle meningeal, pterygoid canal, and internal carotid. So these are the minor arteries supplying. So major you have to remember anterior tympanic branch of maxillary artery and stylomastoid branch of posterior auricular artery. So in the last we have the venous drainage. So venous drainage you have two. One is pterygoid venous plexus and superior petrosal sinus. So venous drainage is into pterygoid venous plexus, superior petrosal sinus.